Hi, everybody. Ah, dang it. I was hoping to catch Sam making raspberry sounds at me.
Why would you do that when I never do such a thing? There are no witnesses to any behavior of that nature.
Sorry, there was echo on, like double echo on my end. Sorry if that came through the microphone. Um,
Hi, everyone. We're well behaved.
oh, sorry. I'll put the game back up. I know we're not done with that yet.
How could you?
But hello? Words on
Hello.
stream? Please to show now. Thank you. That worked, actually. I didn't click
Okay.
anything. I just made a soft plea. There. The thing that proper adult males don't have.
I see.
I was thinking the Manaverse people who refer to a section of the population as females, specifically that word.
Yes, I'm aware of such behavior.
I
I wish them speedy psychological recovery.
Yes, me as well. And I thought what might speed them on their journey is having all of us refer to them as males. And male behavior and boxing them into what the silly expectations would be, and then thereby juxtaposing their strange assumptions with, creating a sardonic representation and allowing them insight through. Uh, oh shoot, what's the sarcastic news reporting?
Satire.
Satire. Thank you. That's the word I wanted. That'll definitely work, right?
And certainly not result in reactive defensiveness, causing them to further double down and eschew entirely engaging in uh, empathy or even compassionate behavior.
Yeah, certainly not because of their evolved self-awareness and self-actualization that they've gone through therapy and various other means of understanding oneself. And
Right. This is a very reasonable expectation of like human behavior.
yeah.
We have a rational basis for this as the expected outcome.
Oh, does it still say BG3? Oh, you know what? Because I was going back and forth on what category to put us in. Um, so I'm gonna put us back to tabletop. Toblerone top. Nope.
I want that category.
But that implies the existence of a Toblerone bottom.
Must
uh,
it?
I didn't say it must. I said it implies.
Yes, but implicature can have
I
force of entailment.
yes, I did suggest it must imply. Yes, that is actually the impact of my language. I will accept.
I I was going back and reading philosophy this week. It gets you words picky.
I
It's
love it.
which is reasonable prep for game design as a practice, which also involves being very picky in modes of thought and categorizing things. Um,
Oh,
so we'll see how that carries over.
and for chat, just so you're not overly concerned about my emotional state, it is tree season. Pollen everywhere, so much
It's the
that my
pollination.
yes,
Everything changed when the pollination attacked.
yeah, and I wish I could burn them down, but I can't because we need them as a functioning ecosystem, and we'll learn to live in harmony. So, um,
And last time that happened, that was real fucking bad for our city, and we would love her to be recovering from that.
yeah, So anyway, if you notice me dabbing my eyes or sniffling, I'm not in fact deeply sad about a particular situation. I have generalized sadness for which I, get help, and that's great. There's no shame in that. Anyway, my eyes were itchy and
Sounds like
watery, and I had a little sneezy today. It is just allergies.
we will take it as a function of your mast cells and not purely that I'm bullying you. Now, time to bully you. We are doing game design last time on Deep Space Nine. I don't know why everything I ever recap is that, other than it was just they had a lot of back to back episodes to recap, and then they'd finish the recap with "and now the conclusion" or whatever. And so that stuck in my noggin way more than any of the others. So we were working on the magic system.
Yes, and that reminds me to ask you, my understanding is that the Borgs designed their cube in
Mhm.
like asserting that this is the most hyper functional and efficient shape that they could operate in.
Mhm.
Does that feel accurate to you?
So I think one of the reasons why we might have an intuitive aversion to that notion is because any of our spaceships typically have to contend with aerodynamic constraints. You're not going to get off of the Earth without going through atmosphere, and so drag becomes a very meaningful variable. That
Okay.
doesn't necessarily pertain of something that would be built in a space yard and never have to have atmo concerns. I suspect there is, like, at the limit, some kind of concern to that effect through interstellar medium, but I don't know about that topic. And moreover, because Borg specifically have transwarp capabilities, I would be hesitant to apply those kinds of constraints to them. And in fact, as I think about it, any ship with an inertial damper is presumptively scattering particles. So anything that would present even just the interstellar medium stuff drag kind of concern in terms of efficiency would seemingly not pertain in such circumstances. So the big reasons we kind of want some kind of spatiodynamic look where cube feels wrong seems to me driven by constraints that don't necessarily pertain for the cube's use.
Yeah.
That's just my off the top of the dome.
So we were talking about this a little bit before stream, where we were talking about the sort of inherent stability of structures, and of course that is entirely environmentally dependent and whatever. And I was thinking like, oh, but if you were in a strong gravity situation, you're pulling away from it, or even just moving past a high, moving past the um, uh, 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 event horizon of a black hole or something, right? Um, a square, a cube, is less structurally integral than a sphere would be in that situation.
I think
But
you're hitting on that
perhaps
it depends on what you're optimizing for.
right. And it could be though that, yeah, I think you had mentioned the presence of artificial gravity or whatever however they're
They have
projecting
to.
that
Yeah.
sort of thing. Um and certainly we acknowledge the necessity of needing to be able to shoot a television show in the 90s and having
Certainly.
some limit to budgets, and we need flat floors and people to be able to walk around, so
Mhm,
that's
yeah,
fine,
it's not the expanse.
right? But it's also not the expanse in that no advanced species is flying around with the absence of gravity. Well.
Right. Interestingly, it is presumed that one should achieve faster than light travel uh, after one has solved gravity problems.
Right. Like, we don't have any like rowdy punk rockers who developed warp drive without while also floating in zero G.
That we have observed within the corners of the story world exposed to us. There is also one other point about the cube, and generally what they're optimizing for, that I think is kind of raised by this whole discussion.
Oh, what's that?
Because it all depends, we said, on what they're optimizing for. Like, in what sense is the cube the best? Well, whatever it is hard to imagine the broad use case being so different inherently from the Borg sphere. Yes, absolutely, they hold different tactical roles, different roles within the Force, but it's difficult for me to make any argument of what the cube is optimized for that wouldn't nominally apply to the sphere as another spacecraft in their fleet, and yet I think almost no argument you make for why a cube would be good will apply to a sphere and vice versa. Why then do they have not just a cube, but also a sphere? And that
Oh, are there
gets to a
spheres
deeper
in the
contention.
show?
Oh, yeah, the Borg sphere is a smaller unit compared to a cube.
Okay. So that is even wilder to me because if you have cubes, the one advantage in my mind is that they
Mhm.
can stick together and form a larger structure, right? Or refuel or dock or whatever. Like that is a sort of built-in, very useful thing. Now, in a world where you can teleport from ship to ship and you have a lot of sort of magical science happening, there's the concerns that I'm worried about don't really apply. Um, but it is, I find it academically interesting.
And if you're trying to find any reason to prefer one chassis of spacecraft or over another within that, like, at a certain point you have to apply the constraints of physics even as simultaneously. Trek gives you many mechanisms to subvert it. But I will submit to you that, as with many species in the Trek universe, most prominently the Vulcans, the Borg are not reliable narrators of their motivations or state. That
Yeah.
is to say, I don't think that they have cubes or spheres because they are actually functionally the best. I think the Borg have a seemingly aesthetic appreciation for the idea of the perfect, and I think both Borg cubes and spheres represent that geometrically, such that it is a form over function against probably how the Borg would represent themselves. It is effectively an artistic consideration. I think that's why they have cubes and spheres.
Oh, you know what? Oh, also, I yesterday or the day before, I got permission from Prince Infidel to refer to them as Prince Fidel, which is what my dyslexia has wanted to turn that into for however long they've been joining our streams. Anyway, Prince Fidel makes the point that at non-centralization, no point on it. That is an argument that applies equally to spheres and cubes. And we were just suggesting that there wasn't a lot of crossover for why you might pick either one. But if you want to say all of these components are redundant and there are no hotspots to target, um, I think you could apply that equally to cubes and spheres.
I think it's more applicable to a sphere than a cube, no?
It might be.
I
Yeah.
mean, just purely on structure,
Yeah.
like,
Structurally, there are weak points to flat planes and corners that
right,
you
that
you
don't
don't
pertain for a
have.
sphere.
Yeah.
So there would be distinctiveness to that effect.
Yeah.
I think the sphere also uh, has omnidirectionality of control
Yeah.
potential. Like, there's no understanding of any angle on it from a flight perspective,
Right.
which is weird, but like a
I
thing you
mean,
can do with a sphere.
you could say that with the cube as well, right? I mean,
Yeah,
there's
because they have
not
planes. What
there
plane
is
is facing the go direction, you know?
that's right. Yeah.
Or is it a non plane? Like, you can tell.
Sure.
It has an orientation.
Right. Um, that's funny. Thank you for entertaining my nonsense there. If you have a sphere, you could roll for initiative. Thank
I
you.
want to see the Borg across the Heat.
Um, Now, the last Star Trek question, just because I have you here and
Mhm.
you're an
Yes,
expert. It seems to me
expert.
with this is not. I have very weak understanding of Star Trek science. Okay, so
So does Star Trek.
well, okay, I didn't know that even. So I loved Next Generation. That is my entire body of knowledge. But that was a show about people and stories, and I think Star Trek is less of a science fiction show. Um, uh, I would assert.
Compared to what? Because I think it's more science fiction than Star Wars, but
Yes,
perhaps less hard sci-fi than I'll refer back to The Expanse, which has a pragmatic theory of gravity, and I think doesn't play fast and loose to the same extent with relativity physics.
yeah, I
Relativistic.
think yes, like Star Trek has nominally a more nod towards science than Star Wars. Star Wars is absolutely fantasy. I don't consider it science fiction at all.
Right.
It is space fantasy. It's Spelljammer. It's absolute nonsense.
But then
Um,
there's Doctor Who, which is science flavored, but
yes,
absolutely fantasy. And
yeah.
then Trek, I mean, ultimately gives rise to fields of physics. So I really don't know how much we can hate on it. Like
Oh, and
warp physics
I don't
as
mean
a well, no,
hate.
not hate. No,
Yeah,
I mean hate on its alignment with science. If you
right.
birth a field of science, I don't know how much you don't count.
Yeah, and also, we can attribute cell phones to
True.
Star Trek.
Also, many engineering, yes.
Yeah,
Although I think even a science flavored thing could do that probably. Or space
absolutely.
fantasy, see the lightsaber.
Yes, yeah. So my question is,
Yes.
it seems to me with artificial gravity and shield technology, as far as I understand it,
Mhm.
you could have a convertible or open top vessel, a non-sealed vessel, that you are able to trap atmosphere and have all of the rest of the thing you need, and you don't actually need a shell, like a physical shell, to your ship.
Okay. Um,
Do their shields trap atmosphere? That's phase one of the question.
so I think it would only be in a circumstance no, yes, we do have the answer to that because in the event of a hull breach, shields activate and then you see people like chilling out and like, oh my gosh, all the air isn't going away. So I think it is fair to say that it can do that. But yes, the engineering concerns here are evident. You wouldn't want to do because you're losing redundancy. Hull also traps atmosphere, and you don't want to lose one and then it's like, whoopsie doodle, my air. I think that's probably the determinant within the logic of track setting. Are you muted? Are you muted?
How? Okay, well, whatever.
I don't.
If somebody in the world of Star Trek were carrying out a vanity project of some kind,
Yes.
right? Or
Yes. If
an
you wanted to
abs
have like a little or solar system convertible where you just tool around Saturn and then come back to San Francisco, there is no reason why one could not do that.
Okay, okay. That's neat.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
like
you
that.
could absolutely do a luxury vehicle.
Um oh, shields use a lot of power in there. Okay. Oh, the shields aren't on all the time. I didn't know that.
That is one of the things that happens on Yellow Alert.
Oh, shields up. Okay, yes. Yeah, okay. I'm familiar with that.
Um,
Um
I believe they also they prevent on Klingon vessels, for instance, they prevent some uses of cloaking. So I think they
oh,
can
and
present
teleporting,
some
right?
forms. Yes. So there's some form of interference that they present, right? Like you can no longer do, I don't know what type of particle wave goes where and how with transporters. But that's clearly blocked by a shield.
Right.
Or a possible other consideration, there's something separate from shields that absorb energy or block atmosphere that is co-activated and we just always see them together.
Yeah. Also, I know there was. there's been a story about. Sorry, we're just so off into the weeds today, but at some point there was a teleporter accident, and
Yes.
there was like two of them, right?
That checks out. These should not be in standard issue ships. They are way too beta.
Right. Um, it also seems to me you could have some guy somewhere
Mhm.
with some wild ass, theory that he's working on, and suddenly he crews an entire ship with copies of himself. Um, because we know it would be a guy who would do that. I am specifically gendering this person. I feel like that is an assertion I'm willing to make as a member of that population. Making the
Well, I'm
manosphere real is
like filling an old Borg cube. You have a minute. Um, I while I'm more than happy to toss in the possibilities of non-binary foolishness, uh, it seems not a necessary, like, the core idea of a transporter seems to be built on principles of faxing, except that the original is destroyed.
destroyed. Yeah,
It is very difficult to conceptualize this in any other manner except than by playing word games as to, well, what's destroyed really? It's a language distinction at most. Like, what we see is not there, assembled there. This is a process. We don't know what's getting transported. We don't know how
right.
data, but it's a sci-fi fax machine where you destroy the original. Um, there may be some pattern buffer so you can resend kind of thing, like, the protocols and, like, TCP/IP kind of stuff
Yeah,
of, like, sending things back and forth. It could be that they don't lose the pattern from the buffer unless there is a confirm from the other transporter that we have fully built this person.
yeah.
We don't know. We
And
don't
it
know a
just
lot of
seems like
anything.
somebody with their fucking jury rigged bullshit on their
Right.
farm somewhere.
My guess is that if those kinds of safety measures are in place, and they should be, or you would lose people by mistake too much. You want that, like,
Right,
send buffer for whoopsie doodle redundancy so you don't just lose whole people.
right.
Keep a temp backup. Um there's no reason why, if it has that capability, different firmware could not conduce to non-destruction or to sending a signal back. Oh, it didn't work. Please reconstitute the person at the original, and now
Yeah,
you have
resend
to. So
packet.
that would be how you. Right.
Yeah. Um anyway, thank you for indulging me on that. Um
Absolutely. I'm happy to. Um Many questions with respect to Star Trek and, like, how much it has at least licked the science, or, like, picked up and looked at the science and then put science back down and said, "No, thank you, but I appreciate the offer,"
yeah.
is in a book called The Physics of Star Trek, which I read back in college,
Oh,
and
cool.
I had quite a good time of. They talk about transporters as well as warp and some of the physics that they are built on, as well as, I believe, some of the physics that ultimately it inspired. I think the
I
book
wonder
came
if
out
that's part of a series,
about
because I
later.
read a book called The Physics of Superheroes that I really enjoyed. And
Oh, is that by that professor at the Midwest Liberal Arts
I'll
College?
look it up. There's probably multiple books with that title, but
Because there is a professor I recall who teaches physics of superheroes,
James
specifically.
Kakalios, it looks like.
There we are. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So he's domain specific in that regard. Um, Also the
Yeah,
science of the X-Men. Yes, which is a fascinating topic, honestly.
yeah. I really like I thought it was an interesting read, and I've always been deeply critical of Superman conceptually, right? I find the stories uninteresting because I don't care about your immortal, invincible god who's going to live forever and his problems. Like I have trouble caring about that person as a entity, and but
Oh, I couldn't disagree more, but okay.
no, okay, I want to hear that. I want to hear that.
Okay.
But my
Yeah.
my take is the only thing that's interesting about Superman is all the people he cares about around him. And like, okay, but that's not a Superman book. That's a Lois Lane book, right? Like that's a anyway, whatever. That I want to hear your take on that. But one thing that I really enjoyed in this book is they're like, Superman's got all this shit we're not even going to talk about. Let's look at the fact that he's an alien fired on a what seems to be a non pilotable, like it didn't have adjustment. It seemed to be they threw a rock at Earth and hit it, and what would be the probability or what would be the calculations involved with that?
Yeah,
And
you really don't want to like physics Superman. It will not thrive. It
right.
it doesn't work.
But I thought that was a really fun and engaging conversation because
Yeah.
they started out with the what's his face, the calculation of whether there's other intelligent life.
Oh,
Um,
yes. Yes. Oh, heavens.
for fuck's
Drake
sake,
equation.
Drake equation. So they started with that. That was a brief conversation, like, hey, so
Yes.
this number is not zero, and
Right.
what do you think? But then they said, okay, so yeah, put your baby on a drone to hit another planet. It'll turn out fine. Yeah, but there, by all now maybe it has propulsion that we're not familiar with. That's entirely possible, right?
It would have to.
Yes, but he did a calculation based on if it had no propulsion, and you just went yeah with the most advanced, he even gave them, okay, Kryptonians have the most advanced sort of technology and calculations and computers and whatever, so they were able to do it. What would that calculation look like? And yeah, I think that's neat.
There should be at oh yeah, but they're not doing it, so they'd have to do it in a great circle style thing, but for the curvature of the universe.
Yes. Yeah.
Because like if you're trying to get to a destination on Earth, you take a different route if you always want the compass to face the same direction, or you want to walk in a straight line the whole time, like not ever turning left and right. If you
Right.
keep the compass, you're gonna have to turn. If you walk a straight line, you will arc a great circle.
Yep.
Uh, yeah, that would be big maths, I have to imagine. But also, if you have the most advanced propulsion, I have faith in you for the big maths.
Yes. Yeah.
Kind of like apparently Trek believes that if you can have faster than light travel, you can solve gravity problems.
Yeah. It does feel like a fair, like, I don't even know that I would argue with that assertion, right? Of
No,
like,
like otherwise, how do you solve the braking problem?
right.
Brake.
Yeah.
Like, how do you not turn to jelly? We talk about inertial dampers, but whatever you're doing to make that work can probably be math that underlies.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, Jericho, imagine, like, I don't think they got this into the book, but it got me thinking about, let's say it doesn't have propulsion, right? And they want to land on Earth, not destroy the Earth, right? But I think we can accept the assertion that this pod is essentially indestructible as far as we're concerned. Um, and so imagine not only does it have to hit Earth, it also has to loop around a couple of big gravitic bodies to slow down, right?
yeah.
Using passive braking as a to not then missile into the
Or
whatever.
you've done that en route,
Yes,
right? Because like there will be moving bodies.
but you would want to do it at the last possible moment to have the most efficient flight, fastest
Depends
flight.
on right, yes. Efficient might have something to do with how those maneuvers end up working, like time of it. Yeah, different considerations.
Yeah. Okay. So, how about them dragons?
Okay, I'm putting a bookmark in Superman now.
Oh, wait. Yeah, yeah, yeah. What were you going to say about Superman?
um, so the thing is, Superman stuff, for the most part, isn't really about his problems. That's a Batman comic. Um, that has all the the super's problems in the world. Superman explores a specific uh ethical theme of interaction of power and goodness and agency, which, like most superhero literature, is built to deal with thematically, but from different angles. So we are, in practice, limited by our ability to do good by two factors. One is our will to do the thing. We might just want to do things that are bad, actually. Um, Leaving aside for a moment moral like moral facts, right? Like if we just kind of take a broad, sometimes we are just not committed enough to doing a good thing.
Sometimes we don't
Um,
leave a penny.
sometimes we don't leave a penny, precisely. But the other limitation on our ability to be good, say that's not the bottlenecking factor, is that we do not have the ability to exert our will in the world. We can't leave enough pennies. I
Mm.
do not have the capacity at this moment to solve world hunger. I don't have the ability to exert that much will on the world at this moment. We could talk about whether I could build up to that at some point. Right now, no. Someone with like almost $1 trillion, could make a very different argument there. More ability to exert will on the world. A superhero has more ability to exert their will on the world than an average person. It's the differentiating factor between them. The power lets them do more good, more evil, more lunch. And so in Superman, the the key feature is that he is effectively never bottlenecked by his ability to exert agency. The whole thing of how just absolutely bazonkers his powers are is about removing that as a consideration. And what does a person look like when they are limited only by their desire and capacity to do good and to figure out what that is? Clark Kent is someone who wants to be a good person to other people, a person we should want to emulate. We
Mm.
don't have the same ability to exert our will, but to a greater extent than someone like a Batman or many superheroes, Superman, particularly through Clark Kent, is a role model of morality. Of like, if I had those powers, I should want to be a superhero the way that he is, because he actually just is a guy who just wants to do good as best he sees it. And his conflicts are around figuring out what that good is and how to use these effectively non limited powers to achieve that. You have the tools, but what do you do to be good? So that's Superman, and I think that is a thing worth exploring in superhero stories. If we could do whatever we needed to do, what actually would we do if we wanted to be good? Superman is where we explore that question, and on that basis, I think he's a meritorious character, and particularly coming out of an age where everyone needed to be like, well, what if people who wanted to do good were bad? Actually, the edgelord model of superheroes.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot to be said for not exclusively conveying so pessimistic an idea toward exerting our agency on the will. What that does when we're like, even the people who are trying to do good, like superheroes, do bad, is like, why even try, really? And Superman illustrates to me no, it's worth trying. However much you have in your tank, try. Try to do good. I think it's a good message. And I think he's a good character and a good character. And I don't see a lot of those.
I
I
I
don't think it's
think
boring.
where I get a little bit hung up on that is, and maybe this is mm, a jaded point of view, but it strikes me that like he is striving to be good as a person who has everything he will ever need or want.
Yes.
And that point of view is what is just deeply alien to me. Like that, even that level of privilege is beyond me. Um,
He is
and
alien.
uh, he will never have to strive to get a meal or pay a bill or go on vacation, right?
Yes.
Like from the basics all the way up to go visit Saturn if you feel like it, you know? And so him choosing to be good feels more like a stroke of luck to me. Um, for instance, I found the comic, the graphic novel, Red Sun, like an interesting and compelling story. It wasn't well told, but it was an interesting concept. So I'm also looking for my audio situation so that we stop doubling up our subtitles, or captions, I should say. Um,
I mean, I think that's absolutely true and reflects the idea of like the release of material constraint. He's effectively like looking at the limit behavior of a person,
mm,
not at the. There are different heroes for questions of trade offs.
yeah,
He is the question of if you don't need things, why be good?
yeah, but I guess I feel like they don't explore that question at all. Like it's never in question whether he's going to be good or whether he's going to limit his own power or impact or any of that.
Well, but it's exploring in part what the good is, right? Because good is very like, yeah, you want to do okay, you want to do good, you are oriented toward that. What is that here? You can do whatever you want to do about it. This is why the best Superman stories are never about can Superman do X, Y, Z. It's
Yes.
will do Superman do X or Y. Those are always the correct structures.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because and it allows for a good exploration of the good because if you have the material constraints that you're describing, paying a bill, then you're not completely exploring what is the good here. It's what is the good within constraints, right?
Mm.
You're adding a complicating factor that exists in all of our lives. Um, yes.
Okay.
But if you had enough power to be free of the social contract, what does it look like for someone who obligates themselves to it anyway? And I think that's very powerful because I think we could use a lot more of people obligating themselves to a social contract. In fact, the dragon game that we're setting up involves a whole lot of people gaining power and disobligating themselves from a social contract. And we see what that wreaks in the world. And that's why our little plucky heroes are trying to stop it with their magic system. I landed that little
That was
motherfucker and I'm so
incredible.
proud.
Absolutely incredible. I cannot figure out why the sound won't shunt to my headphones, so we're just going to have some confused captions and roll on.
um your browser's audio defaults maybe?
Mm-mm. I mean, either way, the sound is coming out of my speakers, and all sound should be diverted to my headphones. So, uh,
Okay, so it's either the OBS monitor, the video, or the system.
yeah, I'm even the video call says audio output destination, those headphones. Um, okay, whatever. Yes, game design.
Yes, exactly.
Look, even our question about talents is called the trouble with talents. That's says something about us as people.
And not with tribbles. It is not a trouble with tribbles. The
No.
tribbles are untroubled.
Yeah, they don't have problems.
Damn, Jericho, you caught me. How could you? Honestly.
How powerful will your magic be? Good question. That is
Yeah.
part of what we have to explore.
Yeah.
So we were going to dive into cast spells and shit today.
Yeah, I thought we had more stuff. Like we had a whole conversation about magic to some extent.
Here it
And
is.
I see one line on page
Magic
3.
should be costly and effective.
Yes. Because I know we were talking a little bit about various models of magic and what their limitations are. See, we're going back to power and reintroducing what kind of limitations. We were contrasting the idea of like scientific magic, like D&D, reproducible. We were talking about Shadowrun, where the reliability of like basically how much daily resource you have
Yeah.
might vary. And we were talking about complications on one side or another and having resource trade off.
Yeah.
I don't know where we left off though. That part I don't remember.
And apparently I didn't take great notes last week or 2 weeks ago.
So while often I can reasonably effectively recall,
yes.
I don't got it here.
Yeah.
I don't want to be redundant. But
No, that's okay.
I also don't remember where we left off
This
on some of those
actually
discussions.
might be okay because I think I need to step away for a couple minutes. So I might do a little like interlude screen here
Okay.
and come back in a minute. I'll put up words on stream.
Okay.
And we'll be back in just a moment. Hey, everybody. I didn't see how the word game was going. We're back. And now we're a little bit short on time, so we'll probably just have to call the game there. But thank you for sticking around. Sorry for the delay.
In fairness, that low on time did come because I yapped about Trek and Superman stuff a lot.
No, that was it. We needed to talk about that because it informs our philosophy about magic and power disparity, and these are useful vocabs to have populated.
True.
Okay, so I also am just in the background here going to see if the video I exported from last week can be got for the transcript, which may have
Some hints
you know,
as to what the heck we did.
yeah,
Wow. Like, and the thing is, I feel like I should remember something that at least my memory was, pretty well.
that's all right. We're everyone's doing their best.
Yep.
So also to clarify the for me, I like some of the unpredictability. but I also don't love when in D&D you go to cast a spell and fucking nothing happens, right? Like
Right.
I don't want that end of the scale either
Right.
versus the, extremely punishingly random whatever. Like,
No, we want things to happen.
yes. Yes.
In the
Studio.
same way that we didn't want to make attacks that miss, because then combat will simply perpetuate.
Gross. Gross. Nobody needs that in their life. Okay. Yeah, I started a bunch of these exporting earlier this morning and they're still all chugging away. So, we don't have that yet.
Okay.
Yeah, so that Prince Fidel brings up a decent concept of how many problems does magic solve. If you're to look at a game like Masks, they are saying your powers and stuff are basically in every equation of solvability, right? If you're rolling danger, if you're rolling unleash your powers, if you're rolling detect your surroundings, on some level your amorphous barely defined power set is engaging with all of that, right? And that's sort of how they lay that out. I don't think that's a design point that we're aiming for. Like your dragon powers leak into everything you're doing.
No, I mean, I haven't got that impression, and if we had that, then this would be an omni skill,
Yeah.
or it could plausibly do omni skill things.
Yeah. And we have actively worked towards having these other skills, for instance, matter. And
Yeah.
that I think is important. Um so hmm. I like thinking about magic in terms of elemental forces. That's sort of an easy way to think about one way that it's useful. I think in a lot of ways you wouldn't necessarily think of elemental forces as like this is how I'm going to pick a lock or hack a computer. Um, Now, certainly people will say, okay, well, I'm going to use my elemental earth to create metal picks and then do into the lock, right?
Mhm.
Um, how do you feel about those notions? First of all, I don't want to go off on a tangent.
Um, I know that they did come up in the previous conference. Like those were a thing that were broadly discussed. I also remember I sent you on a bunch of invisible sun crap. Um, but the idea that one's dragon type influenced not necessarily one's capabilities, but at minimum one's approach to magic um is one that I've found attractive. Um like I think that makes sense to make different people feel like there's difference between their dragons without necessarily hardcore describing each capability. One thing I appreciate about magic in general is it is a versatile tool, or rather I enjoy it the most when it is versatile. One thing
Right.
that I have described before that always irks me is the idea of the prepared caster encountering the situation that's perfect for the situational spell, but it is never rational on a limited like spells today list to take the niche one. You're going to want to take the most versatile spells to cover your bases because you don't know what you're encountering on your event. adventuring day. Unless you have foreknowledge of a specialized scenario, those situational boys aren't going to get any play, and that's a shame because they're lovely. But like effectively, it limits the versatility of the caster in practice. That's always annoying to me. I like versatility with cost or potential consequence rather than or just hardcore leaning into I have a handful of spammable niche things. Like I
Yeah.
have part like basically either you are manipulating a force in some sense which allows for versatility the same way like you can do 10 zillion things with magnetism just to use a very broad example
Yeah.
at your the imagination is very much the bottleneck there. The force does the thing that it does versus a D&D spell. It does a specific thing and one can say, you know, the way I actually engage with that force is like we kind of structured it and this is something I can reliably reproduce. It's a little bit it's a scientific model.
Right. Right.
Um
But
but
then
then you
also
should be able to just fucking do that because it's niche.
but also wanting to avoid the and you can just use this for everything.
Right.
For instance, the example of magnetism being like, yes, I can pick metal locks with this. I can move tumblers. I can disrupt Wi-Fi signals and or like understand the magnetic storage facility and read their hard drives because I can do magnets. you know, um, but yes, so we're trying to find that middle ground, which is tricky. I agree, like there should be some cantrip level effectiveness for the person who has specced into that, right? Like there's a degree of like I almost see cantrip level reliability as higher up the tree than fireball. Like fireball is an easy thing to just open the gates and go there goes all the power, right? Like fireball do one thing. That like flipping that versus the precision of firebolt or heat your drink to an acceptable temperature um like has more finesse. So I guess I'm suggesting finesse is a higher degree of difficulty. Um, and I think in a game about dragons, that might feel good. What are your thoughts there?
I think that will probably be true for some types of things and then perhaps not true for other types of things. I think for fire, precision is difficult, and that might not be true of other types,
Uh huh.
right?
Yeah.
Like that rather than like one could say that there are different levers on achieving an effect as a player character in the world. Um the magnitude of what I'm doing perhaps in terms of space or duration or range
Yeah.
or finesse.
Right.
Like it could be for fire, finesse's challenge, but space is easy
Right.
and range is hard, but duration is easy because a fire just is gonna want to keep burning, maybe. Or duration is neutral, right? Like, or
Right.
anything like that. Um, so with one of the things that I like, I'm just gonna talk about Invisible Sun now. I'm sorry, I am.
That's fine. That's
Um,
great. I will take better notes this week.
and I sent you PDFs, so like the stuff I am talking about can be found
Yeah.
in the way, starting on page 67 for anyone who has Invisible Sun for any fucking reason. Um,
Hold on. Let me make a note of that because I want to go specifically read that today.
or if I mean, since I think I sent you the thing, we could
Well,
maybe
it's
screen
an
share.
email. That's why I keep forgetting. Yes.
you want to screen share to the stream, maybe we can talk about it a little bit.
Oh, hold on. Let me pull my email off of the stream.
And I know,
there.
like, I'm making big trouble just to like talk about a thing. It's just sometimes it's easier for discussion if someone can like look at something with their own eyeballs.
Yeah.
And I want that for folks. Let me see where the other thing I'm thinking of is.
Here we go. The Invisible Sun emails.
Anyone who has ever been at my stream has heard me yap with great yappening about Invisible Sun.
That's great.
It is unquestionably influential on me, magic systems more than anything. Oh, is effects by level table also in the way?
Okay, theoretically, I have done that. Now let's see what else I can pull up here. All right. Which book were you referring to?
The Way.
The Gate.
I made
the
sure
key.
Jason got in the way.
The Way. Okay, great. Let's see. Let's see.
And also for anyone who has heard me talk an absolute heck bunch about this, we'll get just a little bit of a peek because I've never actually pulled up anything from that game on stream before. So, I should have done that by now, given how much I freaking talk about it.
That's great. Okay, theoretically, what's the... Oh god, no, this is bad. Okay.
That's in the way. Got it. Wait.
Looks like the symbol for Jainism. No, this is 8-pointed star.
There's also they had a whole augmented reality sort of puzzle thing that was built into this. There are codes on the pages of some of these.
Oh.
And I got very into solving them.
Really? I'm astonished to learn this.
Usually doing other things and talking about it, though. That's fair enough. Or it's the just chatting stream, and for some reason I'm not as much in the habit as some, but that's to their credit.
Okay.
Okay, good. The effects by level table is also in the way. That's perfect. Because that also, it's a different way of doing things than I have seen in other circumstances.
Okay, we have the PDF here. All credit to Jackson Lensing and the folks at...
Yes, from whom I am borrowing this book.
Yes.
And likewise extending a borrow to Jason. But page 67 in like book numbers of this is
as in the numbers
page.
Printed on the page.
Correct. Yes. I tried distinguishing between book numbers and PDF numbers.
Yeah, that makes sense. Just making sure we're in the same terminology.
It's the same vocabulary. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And we'll just kind of throw into, I mentioned the last time we talked that there are 5 different forms roughly of magic in this, corresponding to Vance's doing D&D magic. Weaver's doing something that it strikes me as broadly in dialectic with the mage tradition. Goetics who do conjuration, which does allow one to very delightfully min-max into social skills because you simply talk to the summons and conduce, and makers who are, of course, doing a crafting system.
Sure.
Also, apostates who don't do any of the above and do make their own spells and are very fighty and bitey.
Can I want to
That's
clarify
what I
one
played.
thought real quick,
Yes.
because Prince had suggested something there. That early game could be defined by big violent moves. What I meant to make a point of in distinguishing between fine control and gross control, um, is that this represents people who have spec'd into a high degree of magic versus people who have spec'd into other things, right? And so if you have, gross motor control of your magic, you can do big showy things, but that's because you're good at other things, and therefore we don't have a magic system that is just the everything system. That was what I was attempting to describe, and we
Yes.
may or may not end up there, but that's uh, uh, the idea. Hey, Steffi, welcome in.
Hello. So we're
Um,
talking about Weaver magic. So, what are we looking at here? We're looking at something called aggregates. The basics of this system are about allowing for versatility. Not how do you not fix a spell effect while still not making your magic an absolute just I put skill points in and I have an everything button. This is a different answer than, for instance, the D&D answer or a traditional answer of let's articulate specific outcomes you can use. Um, though there are other ways that they add some structure. This is part of that for the weavers. So the base weaver will choose two aggregates from they pick a limited list at character from among these at character creation. If you look at the subsequent pages, you will see things like fire or heart or thunder or wind. And each of them has qualities and each of them absences. They also have default durations and ranges, but that's idiomatic to that system. The core idea being that from among the, say, you know, 3, 4 aggregates you might have, when you are doing a magic, select two, because they are both on this page. Why not? Alleyways and blood. Um, I would pick one quality from alleyways and one quality from blood
uh-huh.
to achieve an articulated effect. Um, so if I wanted, for instance, to know something about someone's family background whom I haven't met, I could use whispers from alleyways and family ancestry from blood and weave a spell that would give me maybe a little facto about that person over there and their family background. Like a little rumor has it. What is then is the limitation? Um, blood has things like health as a quality, energy. However, health is an absence from alleyways. I can't use alleyways if I want to make a healing effect. And so that becomes the limitation. You are
Oh,
limited by what positively you can thematically string together to achieve an effect, and you are limited by absences that say not you can't do these kinds of spells, but you can't do it with this aggregate.
sure. What
Um,
does it mean to have an absence of, let's say, nobility or prestige?
um, so let's see.
Like it can't affect the nobility, or it cannot increase your nobility, or that's sort of the nature of my question.
If I said I wanted to use family and ancestry from blood and trickery from alleyways to craft myself an illusion that I look like a big shot, that I look like a duke. No, 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 I can't do that with alleyways because it has an absence of nobility.
Okay, you cannot appear noble if you're
Right. Or
using
prestige, or
alleyways
it's
magic.
it's really adjudicated by the game master that this doesn't fit that aggregate.
Okay,
As you expand, you gain more aggregates, which makes you a more versatile spellcaster. With anything on this page, I basically couldn't make a health spell because 2 out of the 3 alleyways and challenge have an absence of health. I would need to level up to get an aggregate that would even, I could even plausibly argue would let me do a health thing.
Okay. I
And
want
until
to
then, and so when I think about like different dragon types and I look at at these subsequent pages, I think about the dragons kind of like aggregates.
I want to I'm gonna have to like think aloud in real time here to
Mhm,
articulate this question.
mhm.
Um, the don't answer this yet, but the basic the part of the thing I'm trying to articulate is I would have thought you would hate this kind of system, you specifically.
Hmm.
And I want to try to articulate why I would have thought that, and then you can explain why I'm wrong.
Mhm.
Um, I think the lack of specificity here is surprising to me in that if I'm your GM and I'm saying that sounds like a nobility effect to me, I don't think you can do that, and you're making your case for why it is, that is just now above game. We're having a conversation about what nobility is, and your concept of nobility might not match mine. And like I think it should only apply to the aristocracy, but not the concept of appearing noble, right? Or whatever, right? Like I would have thought that lack of specificity would be a force field rebound for any Sam's Delev involved
I
in
think
this
it's
type
such
of
an
thing.
important limitation to the power of the system to actually really fully accept absences. That this is a powerful way of doing magic because you're doing something that's so versatile. And so the social contract of the system requires that I, as a player, accept that absences should be applied expansively, and unless I well and truly absolutely cannot comprehend restricting it, I should accept any restrictions as like, okay, fair play, because I'm getting so much for this. Like,
Right,
if you
right.
see it as noble, fine. We give the benefit of the doubt to limiting because it's so powerful. You have to let
Okay.
the absences kind of like you can't. It sucks to do a min max where you mitigate the min out of existence.
Yes. Yeah,
And
I
so
agree.
absences are a really necessary point of regulation, and embracing that
Okay.
is necessary to avoid being distastefully power gamer about
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. And to be clear, I fucking love this. This seems awesome.
It is.
But I want to make sure I understand why you like it
Mhm.
because you and I have often different
True.
experiences in like the kind of characters that we make and
Yeah.
the way that we would run a game. So I want to make sure I fully understand um,
Yeah.
what it is you would want to carry over and what about this doesn't work for you.
So the thing a lot of it works for me, honestly. I think it's very important to play into the limitations of these, or it can absolutely become an everything button, however one designs these things. And we can talk about the other limitation in this system that's placed, which is also in this book. But what I like at most about it is I don't engage with magic as being very structured or reproducible. It doesn't feel scientific. It actually is a magic system that doesn't feel like insufficiently described science by necessity, which is exactly what D&D does.
Yeah.
That I'm engaging with something uh more primitive or conceptual in ways that
Okay.
no matter how much I engage with this system, I'm not going to systematize it.
Right.
Again, other than the other controls in the system that we can look at in a little while, but I want to kind of sit with
So
aggregates first.
what is the next step of okay, I have chosen stealth
Hmm.
and vigor
Hmm.
because I want to be able to hold my breath in this box until I'm delivered and then emerge from the box. Is that am
Okay,
I in the right paradigm here?
I think so. I mean, I think that's fair enough. And again, you would have like if
'Cause I
it
don't think
feels
that's, or is that a health
yeah.
effect?
Um So I think one would end up arguing, and this is also one of like you can feel already the incentive to want to progress in the system to access more aggregates, which
Yeah,
is the feature of the Weaver as they level that like you can already start to feel the constraints of like, wow, it sure would be nice to have just one more, then it would be definitely I could get this spell to be accepted kind of
right.
idea, which is very nice.
Because
I
I'm
love
sort of
when something
like, if my impression is like, oh, it kind of feels like blood and alleyways doesn't synergize super well. Um,
I don't think they do. I haven't seen them necessarily before.
well,
You could
that's
do some
okay.
interesting things with alleyways and challenge, though. Well, it's why there are more pages of aggregates, right?
Sure.
But like, um,
But I want to think of a successful combination of
yeah,
just what we're looking at here.
yeah,
Um, uh, Strength and obstacles from
mhm,
challenge, and I'm trying to win the arm wrestling contest.
yep, absolutely.
Okay,
Let's
what
see.
happens
Yeah, avoidance,
next?
movement, health. That's fine. Dead, undead, metal, stone, timidity. Yep, fine, clear.
Okay, so you, my GM, have
Mhm.
approved this spellular
Yes,
combination.
this has passed the filtering requirement of can I use these aggregates to achieve effects of this nature?
Uh, yes. What happens next at the table?
Um, what happens next at the table is dictated by a different page of this PDF that I was talking about, alluding to showing you, and is available book page 21,
Okay, but
my file page 23.
in the short version, do I
Yeah.
roll dice?
Um, you will, yes.
Okay,
You will make a check, um, which is which is typically a success or success check. There is it's a D10 system roll, 0 get complications. Um, at low levels, a spell would be 2 dice, so 2 opportunities for complication. But also it's take the higher, apply your skill number, succeed at performing the spell if you have
okay,
beat the threshold. Um, but you can as you if you cast a higher level spell, more powerful spell, um you would roll 3 dice or even 4 dice,
okay,
which enhances your complication risk because any one of those could roll a 0, but also now you are choosing from more
okay,
dice. There are also in this system some like sometimes you need 2 successes, so you might want to roll a big pile of that kind of idea. But yeah, it's beat threshold
okay.
with potential of scaling complication range with power, which is a nice feature of that die system. Yeah, Steffi messes up.
Okay, that's fine. I'm not hung up on the dice system of it. I was just curious about the order of operations here. Of
Yeah, no, I
we,
just like what does it mean to roll dice? Yes, you might still fail.
yeah,
And further, you might have complications.
yeah. So we negotiate the aggregates
Mhm.
and the qualities. You have to apply qualities from two different aggregates.
Yes, that is correct.
Okay, I can't just do stealth and
You can't do
trickery
that
from
with it.
alleyways.
No,
That's nothing.
because you would you wouldn't get enough restriction
Right.
is the thing. Like you have to
What would be
combo
the
helps add.
in-world explanation?
They're weaving different threads.
I see. Yeah. Yeah, like, I even see it as a, well, you need a catalyst, right? Like,
Right.
you can't have just these two sides of the chemistry equation. Like, you have to have this and this so that they will catalyze and
They
create an
will
effect.
actually
Yeah.
do something because if they're apart. But again, like if I look at this when you're talking to me about elements, I'm
Yeah.
translating these mentally into
Yeah.
an aggregate style idea,
This
and
makes a
again,
ton of
further into
sense to me.
dragon types.
Yeah.
Like
But,
that
and
way
then,
they can feel different in terms of, okay, you actually have a whole different library of effects you can do with that.
yeah.
It all that also allows dragons to integrate into build crafting.
Yes. Yeah. I really,
But
really
not
like
in like a
this.
forced path kind of way, because if you want to be a battle boy, there are tons of aggregates you
Right.
could use to achieve that outcome. You're not restricted in your dragon
Right.
type based on what you want to be, but you could still build craft to facilitate a given build vision.
Right. And we could say absences for a waterbender are you're not going to be able to set anything on fire. Sorry.
And indeed, uh, there are absences for um, the sea that include fire.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So if we look at our magic system, why is this not hiding?
So yeah, the kind of like wibbly wobbly nature of like I can kind of pick out my spells is one of the main elements I see of commonality with mage, but
Yeah.
I find this such a cleaner idea.
No,
At least to the extent that I've encountered mage. Like
this is better
again,
than mage.
this is a masterwork by Monty Cook of like various magic system. Like this is a commentary on the history of TTRPGs while creating a system in its own right. Like
Yeah.
I'm so impressed with this game. This is one school of magic, and I think like I think it's lovely.
No, I think this is great. I think what it does is it says we're, we are not the load a bullet in a gun and pull the trigger magic system, right? That's fireball. That's invisibility. That's D&D magic is load your revolver and shoot your special bullet.
Yeah.
So we are saying our magic system is going to involve negotiation and discussion and agreement. And then you will have some amount of dice that say, okay, well, you're this good at water magic and you're this good at fire magic. So yes, you can make a steam elemental, or whatever, right?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay.
Or it can be like, your dragon can have any of a number of list of things that you could like, depending on how closely you want to hew to these ideas. There are a bunch of
Yeah.
different ways to implement that over dragons.
Yeah.
Like, a subset of potential ones for each dragon type.
Yeah.
Um,
So I think it's also I'm articulating for myself that
mhm,
we're not that we are departing from, but like this describes the departure from the super rules light PBTA, blah blah blah. Like what we are making an intentional, and I'm
yeah.
not. That's not a criticism. I'm just
No,
sort of
it is definitely more structured than Unleash Your Powers.
yes, yeah, yeah,
And that I think helps support each dragon feeling different,
yeah,
because Unleash Your Powers doesn't do that. Like the thing I always want from Masks is like it's not al dente enough.
right,
And so this is a fairly limited way of providing some dente.
yeah,
But it does it in just like figuring out, okay, I think I want to do this thing. My aggregates do not support that. What other thing could I do with what I've got?
yeah,
Like it inspires a mode of thought that I think is really fun. I like that it's problem solving without necessarily being, how do I fit this one specific spell into every
yes,
circumstance kind
yeah,
of idea.
absolutely. I agree. This is
How
this
can
is
I
a
solve
really
all
great
problems with
middle
fireball?
ground between the absolute bullshit of mage, which I love.
Mhm.
I say that with
Yeah,
love. Okay.
sure. But yeah,
I'm
no, it's random bullshit go.
um versus even the like Shadowrun is still load your magic bullet into the gun.
Yes.
You just don't know how many bullets you have, which is
Yes.
fun for
Yeah.
me. Um but it is still very prescribed the outcome of the spell.
Right.
So yeah, let's adopt this model and see how far we get with it.
Yeah.
So in our magic chapter, we want to have should we start with calling them elements and then see what happens?
Yeah. I think I might pitch the idea of, as I'm trying to figure out like how the dragons interface, that a given dragon type might have some limited subset number of aggregates, and so might a player character at character creation.
Yeah.
So that you have to combine, for instance, something from player and something from dragon.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Because that also allows a little more, like, so, you have, imagine dividing half this list into things that are player, like pick from the player. And then you take half this list and you scatter them across various types of dragons.
Fuck, that's really good, Sam.
Thank you.
Holy shit. Fucking shit. I know that the measuring tool and methods are somewhat fraught, but have you had your IQ measured?
I had to do it once, yeah, for some accommodation stuff.
I want to talk about that later. Like my mind is blown. And I realize now you've desperately been trying to communicate this to me of like, please, mortal, listen to what I'm trying to say. I'm bringing you fire. Please accept this phenomenal fucking thing I'm trying to give you.
I stand on the shoulders of giants. Well, really, my wheelchair sits on top of the shoulder of a giant like a parrot. Like Monty Cook made
Sure.
like the huge moves, and the whole design team let me not like undersell creatives like Sean Germain, who's absolutely a core contributor of this book through editing and through like collaborative processes. I don't want to like auteur designer this excessively,
Absolutely.
but like really there is a fucking reason. Like a lot of what I'm doing here is just like, hey everybody, I'm not the big smarty. Monty Cook Games is the big smarty, and all I'm doing is calling attention.
Right. Right. And I think that's really like we're not going to just lift aggregates,
No,
but the concept here is so strong.
yeah.
Um
So if we were to go, I would proceed by like going across dragon types, um, that we already delineated, and then one could make qualities and absences for each, or legally distinct
oh,
thereof.
that's right. I need to start adding everything to this tab.
And then seeing what negative space there is. I think, and probably my first pass would probably be to offer as many player aggregates as there are draggregates, but I don't know yet. I'd have to think a little bit more because that could
So
be a lot. The thing is, each one is a lot of heft and a lot of power. So
so
a little dabble to it.
our current dragon types we're suggesting there are arcane dragons,
Hmm.
fire, air, earth, nature,
Hmm.
water,
Hmm.
and I think that's what we had narrowed it down to. And then,
Yep.
but somehow we had talked ourselves into light slash shadow, and I don't know where that fits into that model.
I don't either. So on like a fairly limited number, I would be inclined to um I think I would be inclined to at least start with one aggregate for dragon, take a pass at the same number for the riders, and then see where one ends up and whether like trying to do a second set would be too much
Yeah.
because I could absolutely see it being so. Um, in Invisible Sun, they did DLC that includes additional aggregates, which is heckin' cool. Um,
Oh yeah. So the last thing we had sort of established way back in devlog 6 um was that we have a generic category for stuff like combat, flight, social, whatever, like stuff that isn't necessarily a particular dragon. I imagine a lot of these are player side elements, and then the dragons are bringing in. So air is also capitalizing on EM, probably electricity, all that kind of stuff. Arcane,
so these are
earth.
lovely examples of things that are like pretty close to in an Invisible Sun setting equality.
Yeah, but here's the thing.
EM is
I'm
like almost equality there.
This is like the Memento and the end of Fight Club of like Sam has been leading me to this so gently and kindly. And I'm like literally out of breath. I'm so fucking excited right now. Okay?
I'm so happy. I just want people to appreciate what this stuff is and what these ideas can do. Like it's such a paradigm shift compared to other systems I encounter while being such a good example of itself. And also I've played for years with it so I understand like where how these kinds of things need control in tables, which is also very valuable.
Bro, I can bring back mind, body, and spirit for the
You
human side of
could.
shit.
You could. Yes. Yes.
Literal chills. Fuck off. I was not ready for this today. Okay, so none of these here. Oh, we were putting light, shadow, radiation into the air thing. Um, that feels like a stretch to me.
I think one of the nice things about systems like these is that one does commit to not necessarily identical numbers as I recall. There's like a little variation, like some I if I recall correctly, it's like between 7 and 9
Yeah,
qualities here. Again, I'm just going to model off of like what modeling off of. And I at one point had written my own for the game and we're going to see like we're going to want to balance these things across dragon types. We'll notice if someone is overstuffed or understuffed fairly quickly simply by trying to itemize what fits here.
yeah. Well, what
So if like
I
shadow
mentioned
stuff is
this.
overscribed in air,
Yeah,
then
I
you
mentioned
break
this
it out.
because right now these are listed as there are air dragons, and
Right.
attributed to air dragons are buff magic, spark magic, speed magic,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
then, but I'm wondering if we do need a separate like light, shadow, radiation, like dragons that are like that is their element, because light is not air or earth or fire or nature or water. Light is I mean, it is an output of energy, but
I think I could make a strong argument for light as a quality in fire.
you don't need fire for light.
No, but um and in fact in the way it looks like illumination is a right it's a these things can be contained in smaller categories like what are the elemental sort of things that you want to do while still again reserving enough negative space for humans to be able to do stuff,
Yeah,
humans to bring something and not everything be brought by a dragon type. You have space within like and you can have and I think humans also thrive somewhere in the abstract. If we were looking back at, um, I think alleyways and challenge are good examples of things that if I were going to just throw them directly into our game, I'd throw those onto the human side. Challenge is a very human feeling aggregate. It's like a mindset approach or something to that effect.
Yeah.
But like, the idea of mysteries being contained within challenges. Oh, I could instantly make an argument to you that mysteries should be broken out. I think you can probably properly do that with any given aggregate. You probably would be able to say, "Oh, this could be its own aggregate for any quality under an aggregate."
Hold on.
So light isn't fire is what I would say, but fire can be, or light can be a quality of fire, Prince.
Sure.
Um
But yeah, okay. That's fine. I want to stay still like big picture before we drill too hard down into that.
yeah.
That was just an example.
Oh, and
Um,
yeah, sample response.
so I'm also thinking philosophically in the game, like magic is possible due to the completion of the human dragon existence circuit. That doesn't make sense yet, but it will.
Okay.
Like the so
I mean, also
humans,
it's magic. We don't have to have any sentence in it that has is due to or because.
right? But what I want to explain is why everybody in the world can't do magic, right?
Mhm.
Of like, but why dragon riders can, and that's
Yeah.
because you need a human thing and a dragon thing
Yes.
to catalyze and create an effect, right?
And that was sort of the hope with the, because it gives an organic explanation of like why our characters are special. That's not an inherent thing, but rather an emergent property of partnership with a dragon. It gets around the being a Jedi is hereditary problem.
Blech.
Right, exactly. We had talked previously about not really liking that. And so it's not, you as a person inherently don't have this capacity.
Right.
Anyone who met the condition of partnering with a dragon would have this capacity. Anyone without it, if I were to lose it, I would not have the other necessary criterion.
Right. Okay. So that's not elements, it's dragon types that we're listing.
Yeah, because I think you want to build one for each dragon type at minimum.
Okay, so we do have air, earth, fire, not human. We don't
No,
have
human's
metal
not a dragon
either.
type.
Metal is embedded in earth, I guess.
It is.
Yeah.
I mean, that's why there's mining.
Um. Then we have an arcane dragon.
Mhm.
Uh. Air, arcane, earth, fire. Oh, nature. That's the other one. Ew, I got nature on me. Oh, Jesus. Okay.
I don't think he's a dragon type.
Magic is friendship. Yeah, that's exactly it. Um,
Aw.
okay, so these are our 6 dragon types.
Mhm.
And then under each of these, you would want the equivalent of qualities and the equivalent of absences.
Yes.
Okay.
And build like one of those for each.
Are you comfortable with the term geishe or geishe?
I'm unfamiliar with it.
It's a magical restriction, largely from the Celtic, but is not exclusive. The
Oh,
concept
like
is
the
not
fifth level spell.
exclusive.
Okay, Gish.
an idiosyncratic taboo of like you are unable to curse or not allowed to
Mhm.
sleep in a bed, to use oh my god, Abria's other podcast. Um
You're not allowed to use a podcast. Got it.
yeah.
Understood.
But yeah, it's a geisha is a Irish mythology, yeah.
As a way of articulating
The
absences,
restrictions.
prohibitions.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
just as terminology.
Yep. Absolutely. Yep. I mean, you gotta make them legally distinct, baby.
Yeah. Um
So yeah, Monica, y'all know I love you. Y'all have my heart. We're being legally distinct as we can.
well look, if the concept is solid, right? Like and lots of games have used the tags. I haven't seen the prohibition part of it before, but
Yeah.
um
Yeah, which I think again absolutely makes it.
yeah.
It's such a valuable sense of restriction, so which in turn allows things to feel differentiated and drives my acquisitive desire for level up. Like the other thing I happened to like about this game is that like much like Star Wars or or Vampire or some other levelless games, like I want more XP to get more thing, just like one more thing. I just want one more aggregate and then I can do this one type of spell I find myself wanting to do all of the time or whatever. Not that I play Weaver and Invisible Sun.
Hold on.
But
I'm going to try to listen to this pronunciation guide. I don't think it's going to come through to the audience, but yeah, it's a little less gay than I put on it. It's more like geish, but I like geish.
Gish. Gish. Okay, open E. Got it. Eh.
Yeah. It's like he's saying it, trying to think of what to rhyme it with, cuz it's not like bed. It's there's like a little more a on it than that.
And English language has a sound as a diphthong. A.
Yeah.
Whereas languages like, for instance, I learned in Italian will give you a so-called pure vowel e,
Mhm. Yeah.
which can be, or eh,
Yeah.
closed or open. Context.
Okay, so I'm comfortable saying geish or gish, and it is what it
I mean,
is.
we're going to need to facilitate it for English language speaking audiences.
Yes.
Um,
So under air, what do you imagine is permitted?
well, okay, so I think probably the best thing to do is start by populating them with what we already had as ideas and figure out what we need to transmute about them so that they properly fit traits for dragons,
Yeah.
right? Like, the idea of buff can probably be expressed more effectively of like, but magnetism you could say is ported directly, or you could just be like speed. I think speed is a great one that we had again been sort of talking about, or movement, something like that. So I think the good first pass, because I always find it easier to edit than populate, and we already had a bunch of things that we wanted with our dragon types. And that seems like material to be like, wait, no, not quite that, but like maybe something like that.
I think I do need bullet
Yes,
points now.
exactly. There we go.
Um,
I've also heard it as a Gaius prince.
that's
That's
how
pretty
I.
much all of the Americans I've ever heard. Like, but at the same time, the notion that we should have wildly mispronounced a Celtic language word is incredibly intuitive to me. They deliberately trolled Latin transliteration, and I think that's a beautiful anti-imperialist thing.
Yeah.
but it's a pain in my ass as an English speaker. May they not care, but nonetheless.
Okay. Yeah, there's a Gaish component in Shadowrun, and I had always said Gaius
Yeah.
growing up, and it was just recently that I learned the uh, more Celtic pronunciation. And yes, Steffi, all Celtic nations are the same. That's not true. I'm being
That's a
facetious.
lovely thing to say ensconced in Burbank.
Yes. Yeah.
That's a very secure statement to make over there in Los Angeles.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, yep. I mean, as a plausibly defaulting to like Latin vowels when you don't know a word is like a fair first guess with most English.
Right.
Like, when in doubt, does it look kind of, if it doesn't look kind of German, just throw Romance language-ish vowels and hope for the best.
Yeah.
Because unless you actually know where the word is from, you don't know what pronunciation rules to import, like a Python library.
I want to fill out air a little bit before I have to go.
Mhm.
I've got another 5 minutes or so.
Okay.
So, and then this feels like something that we can also sort of noodle on offline and just add stuff as,
Okay.
and then come back and discuss of like,
Mhm.
well, actually, I don't know that that makes sense,
Yeah.
and that's okay too.
Yeah.
Okay.
Uh,
Do we need to define buffs beyond buffs for right now?
um, I would be interested. So this distinguishes between 2 points that are a little fuzzy in the weaving system, but may equally be fuzzy, or we may engage with it differently, which is, to what extent is each permission or trait thematic?
Yeah.
Like, um, one could have the trait of wind for air, and
Right.
then that's defined in a kind of way. Um, but is very abstracted out. Like, there is no direct mechanical implication
Right.
of wind as an idea.
Right.
By contrast, we were initially using motivating examples with the word health, which does tend to have a mechanistic implication, even as it can also be a more thematic idea. Right? Right.
Yes. Yeah.
For instance, health understanding, you're diagnosing people. It's not a necessary entailment that a health trait would be give HP,
Yeah.
depending on what else it's combined with. But when you see it, it is where your brain goes. So buff, I think, feels to me like it's directly engaging with a mechanical idea and not necessarily with with a thematic idea, or that it might at most be kind of like health,
Yeah.
where by rewording it away from a mechanical
Yeah.
implication,
It's
it
too
opens it up
specific.
for the thing like health understanding diagnosis.
Yeah. Um, I don't necessarily want to put it under health for air, but I was thinking about something like endurance or not even that, but like when you have good lungs, you can run longer. That's it was kind of what I was thinking about.
Hmm.
Um, but let's put wind because also I if I was casting a spell, I might say like, hey, I want to combine wind and health and gain an endurance bonus from this or be able to hold my breath for an hour or whatever, right?
The latter I would comfortably give you. The
Yeah.
former, I think, my I'm not a GM, but my instinct is, okay. How is the wind giving you health?
Yeah.
Right, and again, this is playing into uh, being fair, but erring on the side of narrowness with traits, and
Airing.
fair air, um, and then be like, as a player, kind of interpreting broadly absences. This is otherwise quality, so will never feel distinctive. Um, At the end of the day, it should not be that everybody can do everything and it's purely sophistry.
Right.
Which absences nicely or restriction or Geish nicely do, but also that's achieved by being like, okay, how is wind giving you health? Versus, okay, I can see how wind or breath plus health could get to a breath holding for an hour. Cool, fair,
Yeah.
makes sense to me. But if someone were suffering heat stroke, I think wind plus health I could absolutely accept as a like helping cool someone down with a gentle breeze.
Yeah.
I would give. It's a wibbly fuzzy kind of idea.
Also fart jokes.
Yes, also fart jokes.
Oh yeah, what about wind or breath as a tag, as Steffi pointed out?
So either that should be in. So my
Or we use wind as a non-specific that can be breath when you want it to be.
So that goes kind of back to, do we want that to be restricted to air?
Right. Is it the platonic ideal of breath? Sorry.
I mean, but if you put it in a quality, then you want it to be distinctive enough
Right.
that it is not necessarily a quality of others. It can be a shared one, but it certainly shouldn't be a universal one. And the idea of a breath weapon, for instance, tends to be a universal idea about dragons.
Oh, yeah.
If it should be universal, it should not be a permission.
Yes. Yeah. Okay.
Because permissions give distinctiveness. So we could imagine breath as either in addition to all of these, your dragon can also give you the quality of breath. Either just like give an additional permission to absolutely everyone just by having a dragon, which I'm inclined against, just off rip. I don't know. I don't know that I like that. Or that is a vessel to achieve an effect that you described to me narratively.
Yeah.
Which feels much more like what we're going for.
Yeah. Okay.
So yeah, that's my thoughts on breath.
Okay. Also, it seems like permissions and Geish should be nouns.
Yes.
I
think that's good.
Like the qualities. Yeah, understanding is a noun.
Yes. Yeah. They're broadly speaking effective, like virtually all nouns. It is the good first pass understanding to say that they're nouns.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a helpful design
Yes.
note.
I mean, they should all be the same parts of speech, either verb, adjective, noun, kind of thing.
Or if they are verbs and adjectives, then we should have verbs and adjectives in all of them. But that becomes
Or
messy,
you have verbs on a human side, nouns on a dragon side kind of idea.
Right. Like but even the difference between fast and speed, I think, is significant, right? Like that's a useful
I mean,
distinction.
speed and movement are different qualities that exist across different aggregates, for instance.
Yes. Yeah.
Which also lets you, have movement in arcane and speed in air, and these are not necessarily overlapping.
Right.
Not to say that movement, I was just thinking about, like we had been talking about, like teleportation ideas. One way to kind of like abstract that could be movement. Or could be something else, because at this point you're kind of taking your hands off of what players can use magic to do in terms of specific flavor, right? As long as you've met the permissions,
co-location.
There's a lot that you can do to flavor stuff.
Okay.
Or you
I
can, say travel can be
yeah,
permission for, like, I think we came in with mechanistic ideas of what we wanted to do,
right.
and I think,
And then
like,
we're gonna
getting to
reverse back
the
into this.
conceptual
Yeah.
is makes it idiomatic. Like, I think when one tries too hard to force, uh, "So they should teleport,"
Right.
is working against what
Yeah.
permissions want to be able to do.
What we want is for them to be where they need to be and to
Exactly, and
have
they can tell me what that looks like,
right.
because we don't care. What we care about is, can you achieve a given mechanistic outcome?
Right. Interesting. Okay. Um
But yes, we should wrap it up for this week, and then, like, I think we have plenty to jump off of, and we will have no trouble getting back this. I'm not gonna lie, I'm so happy that you like this shit, because
yeah,
I've been
I'm
I've
glad
been
you're pleased that you blew the top of my fucking head off and now I have to go put that back on so I could keep some ideas in there. Fuck off. In with all love and respect,
accepted and embraced.
go directly to hell. Um okay, friends, I'm going to look for someone to raid real quick. Sam, do you have anything else to say for yourself?
I'm gonna be using the aggregate of dating on the substrate of everything
Mm,
tomorrow at 9 a.m. Over on my channel. Yeah, that's Pacific Daylight Time.
awesome. All right, I don't see anyone to go and raid right now, so that's fine. Um You can find me tomorrow morning. We have the finale of our masks campaign over on Happy Jacks. So that's the Neon Nights campaign is wrapping up on Sunday afternoon, 5 p.m. Pacific time on Happy Jacks. We are continuing our D&D campaign. We are off to battle Zariel of Avernus. That is literally what's happening on Sunday. So if you just want to see what we're up to, also that campaign I have successfully piloted the using 2d10 instead of d20
Right?
mechanic.
Yeah.
I am a huge fan of it. They're very minor things you have to tweak, like death saves are succeed on 11 instead of 10, and you still get 55% chance of success.
There you
So
go. Yep.
things like that. Like I was gonna write up a document and share on the DMs Guild, and it's so fucking minor of what you like. I should still do a one sheet or something, but um, it's it feels so good to roll D10, 2d10 instead of the D20. I know there were people who are gonna clutch their D20s to their grave, and they're welcome
Okay.
to them. But
Yeah.
if you are interested in another way, a better way, um, I beseech you, consider the 2d10. Um,
Heck yeah.
all right. Thank you everybody for joining us. And we should well I don't think there's any conflict next Friday, so I imagine we will be back and breaking it down as usual.
Yeah.
With
Getting more into this.
probably 30% less superhero content. We'll see.
Very probably.
Yeah.
Strong possibility.
Yeah. All right, everybody. Thanks so much. We'll see you next time. Bye.